Solo Chambers of Xeric Challenge Mode Edition. Today we break it down room by room from Tekton to Ulm on how to effectively do solo CMs. The barrier to entry isn't as high as you think. You do not need the Twisted Bow. And the supply cost? Well, Iron Man rejoice. It has less supply cost than a regular Chambers run would require. I have max gear, but let's operate with a setup under the assumption that we don't, because as I said earlier, the barrier to entry is not as high as you think. So let's very quickly and briefly go over our gear and inventory setup. As for what we are wearing right this second, this is pretty much our best available melee setup. Whatever you have, whether that's bandos, oath plate, what have you, go ahead and put that on. Now I do have the Aram's rope skirt on right now, and that is actually pretty interchangeable with the crystal legs we have for our range setup. And that's because we're just going to save the inventory space and not wear something like Bandos Tacits or something. It's honestly not too big of a deal. I don't think you even lose a max hit most of the time. So in the interest of inventory space, you can go ahead and not wear any legs. However, I guess if you do have the inventory space for it, you can go ahead and bring that too if you want. Before we move on to the rest of the inventory setup, I do want to make note of the Osmumtum's Fang I have equipped right this second. This Fang is brought in to get through various rooms in the challenge mode layout. It is not used for the Ulm fight. I highly do not recommend this, and instead, make sure you bring your Dragon Hunter Lance. While this run is going to utilize the Dragon Hunter Lance, I will also feature how to use the Scythe in Ulm at the end as well. Likewise, in our mage setup, we are using the Sanguinesti staff for the setup, which is interchangeable with the Trident of the Swamp. Although if you do have your hands on a Sang, obviously the healing feature is a nice bonus. But nevertheless, we are going to showcase the Sang setup, but also how to use a Shadow at the end of this video. With that cleared up, let's go over the inventory. So in our inventory, we have the 7-way mage switch that we very briefly just showed. Now, this is only a 7-way because we are bringing the Book of the Dead, which is very, very important because we are going to be on the Archaeus spellbook for Thralls. This is very important for Ulm. Now, that leaves us with a 6-way right here, which includes our Ancestral Hat. Now, if you don't have an Ancestral Hat and you're opting to bring like an Aram's Hood or something even lower tier than that, I would probably just drop this Mage Hat switch altogether. And speaking of hammers, we have the Elder Maw, which I suppose technically is a mega rare, but only because it shares the same drop table as the Twisted Bow. But let's be real here, when people are talking about mega rares, they're referring to the big three: the Twisted Bow, the Scythe of Vitter, and the Tumican Shadow. So this is going to be our hammer spec. Obviously, if you don't have an Elder Maw, do bring the Dragon War Hammer. So we just went over the different gear we would be wearing for the respective attack styles of melee, mage, and ranged. Now in the bottom half of our inventory, we're going to go over special attack weapons and items that are specific to each room in the CM layout. We already went over the Elder Maw, which is going to be our defense reduction spec, but let's go over the Burning Claws that are right next to it. Now, Burning Claws serves the purpose of a DPS spec weapon, so if you have an upgrade over this, like Dragon Claws or even a ZCB, especially since you have a quiver, you could definitely bring the ZCB. However, the Burning Claws serve a dual purpose. They are also best in slot for the Ice Demon room, because it's Demon Bane. So if you don't have Burning Claws, do bring an Emberlight or an Arclight if you can afford the inventory space. Although it's not the end of the world if you don't have any Demon Bane with you or you simply don't want to bring it, because the Bofa and the Fang alike are very effective in dealing with Ice Demon. And next to the Burning Claws, we have the Dragon Hunter Crossbow. Now just now I mentioned that if you do not possess a Bofa but you insist on doing a solo CM, then go ahead and bring the Dragon Hunter Crossbow. Now the thing is, if you do have a Bofa, you're going to want to bring a Dragon Hunter Crossbow anyways. The Bofa is going to get you through the rooms, and then you're going to want to bring the Dragon Hunter Crossbow into the actual Ulm fight during the Headphase. And in a similar vein, next to the Dragon Hunter Crossbow, we have the Dragon Hunter Lance, in which we bring the Osmumtum's Fang to get through the rooms, and then we bring the Dragon Hunter Lance into the Ulm fight for the final fight. Now, if you're watching this guide and you own a Scythe of Vitter, you can simply just bring the Scythe in instead, and you're going to use the Scythe in all the places that you use the Fang and the Dragon Hunter Lance. And let me circle back to the Dragon Hunter Crossbow and Bofa. In a similar vein of the Scythe of Vitter being the Lance and the Fang combined, you can simply choose to bring a Twisted Bow if you possess one instead of the Bofa and the Dragon Hunter Crossbow. I think that one was a little more obvious though. Anyways, next up we have the Salve Amulet, which is going to be used for the Mystics room where you're going to be ranging with the Bofa setup. Instead of the Anguish equipped, you're going to have the Salve Amulet imbued and enchanted for that one. However, if you have a max mage setup that includes the shadow, you can go ahead and drop the Salve Amulet instead, as you will be maging that room. And then next to it, we have the Dragon Pickaxe, downgraded to a Rune Pickaxe if you don't have a Dragon Pickaxe. Simple enough for the Guardians room. Next up, we have a potion. This is like the only potion you see in my entire inventory setup right now. And this is going to be for the Ulm fight. And if you must, you can use it to get through the rooms. Back before the stamina changes, you definitely did have to use a stamina to get through the rooms, but these days, probably not so much anymore. I am bringing an extended stamina potion, but if you can't make extended variants, then you can go ahead and bring in a regular stamina potion as well. Maybe two for good measure. So we just covered everything that we are going to be bringing into the actual raid. Well, at the bottom of our inventory, what about our pre-pot? So let's go over what's in our chugging barrel. In our chugging barrel, we have the anti-venom and a divine super combat potion dose. The divine super combat potion, or even just a regular super combat, is crucial for the first room being Tekton. As for the anti-venom, this is going to be for the shaman room, which is actually the fourth room in the layout. Now, there is some variance to this depending on how fast you can get through the raid. Also, you could opt to upgrade the anti-venom into an anti-venom plus, or even its extended variant if you're willing to do that. Or, on the other end, you could cheapen out and simply use an antidote plus plus instead. However, this is all based on your timing. In some cases, you may have to bring the actual potion in. That's entirely up to you. And this varies because, like I said, Shaman room is the fourth room in the layout. So you're going to have to make sure you get through Tekton, the Crab room, the Ice Demon room, and then it's the Shaman room. And so with the gear discussion out of the way, let's go ahead and pre-pot run in with our Elder Maw or Hammer ready. Run over to the yellow mark tile, and that's simply to lure Tekton away from the anvil. As soon as Tekton is on the move, make your way over to the second yellow tile. This is where you're going to begin attacking Tekton. Hammer spec when Tekton is just about one tile away from you. Instantly step back, wait one tick on that tile, step back in, then immediately back out, then immediately spec Tekton again. Repeat this process, but then use your main weapon, be it a Fang or Scythe, and immediately start walking around Tekton. I like to manually click each tile to help time my weapon cooldown. As long as you attack off of weapon cooldown and keep moving, you should naturally dodge Tekton's attacks, and the first attack cycle will be finished once you reach the east side of Tekton. Wait for Tekton to come to you, and once again attack Tekton right as he's just about one tile away from you, and repeat the walking process. This time around, you will have to step back from Tekton to dodge one of his attacks, as your natural pathing around him will not dodge his attack. This is because Tekton has an attack speed of 3 ticks. Even though you have to step back, you will still be tick perfect with your attacks, attacking off a weapon cooldown constantly. Tekton is going to be done in 2 to 3 anvils, depending on your gear setup and a little bit of RNG, of course. Once you're done with Tekton, make sure to pick up the Overload and Enhance. And because we have all this extra space in our inventory, do bring along the Restore that it drops as well. Go ahead and Overload and Enhance right away, and then eat up with any food that you might have brought in. This isn't necessary, but if you want to feel more comfortable, do bring some food in to heal back up a little bit. After the Tekton room, we have the Crab room. Very simple, but mistakes can be made. Go ahead and equip a range weapon and aggro 3 crabs immediately. Stand next to this green mark tile so that one of the crabs will fall perfectly into place to bounce off towards the first crystal. Afterwards, immediately lure 2 crabs into the stun tiles we have marked and smash them into place. With the 3rd crab, get yourself into position for the blue mark tile and make sure you mage the crystals, or the crabs I should say, so that the crystal gets triggered correctly. Then you can walk your way down over to the white tile here, labeled number 4, and simply do nothing, just hold aggro and let it bounce off. Then with that same crab, you can now smash it into place on the red mark tile, and there should be a 4th crab somewhere else in the room, in which you lure all the way to the other side and put into place for the final crab, or the final crystal. And that is the crab room. This method should get you an average of about 1 minute for a room completion. After the crab room, we run through a scav area, in which we're going to need to do in order to prep potions for the rest of the raid. Now at this point in time, you don't have too much space in your inventory, so as you fight the scavs, go ahead and run next to the tinderbox for the Ice Demon room, drop some of your potions to make space, and then scav. You're definitely going to want planks for extra storage, and then you're going to want juice and mushrooms. For me, the magic number is going to be 13 in darkened juice and 8 mushrooms. More if you feel like you need more supplies, but to me, that gets the job done very comfortably. Once you've gathered all the supplies, go ahead and run further into the raid. There should be a storage room just shy of the actual Ice Demon room, in which you're going to upgrade the storage unit for extra space, and then go ahead and deposit everything. If you have access to the shared storage, go ahead and put the potions and supplies in there, and then your gear in private. This will keep everything nice and organized. Then run back, pick up the bronze axe that's available in the middle of the room, and here's a neat little trick as you run back to pick up the potions that you previously dropped, and of course the tinderbox. Every time you get a woodcutting EXP drop like so, you can actually go ahead and run on over to another tree and then chop. This allows you to move around to where you need to be quicker without losing ticks while woodcutting. You're going to want to gather a full inventory, that being 28 kindling, and light a brazier. Now there's various methods to lighting the brazier as far as how many kindling you want and how many braziers you're going to light. But for a regular run, when you're looking to just do the raid consistently and perhaps get a decent amount of points, what I like to do is chop one full inventory, being 28, and then get another 28 and light a second brazier. So right now we have one brazier lit. We're going to go over to a second one and put that in. And from this point, it's kind of a race against the clock. Ice Demon has a health percentage bar above it, and I'm chopping, and I'm going to keep chopping until I see it fall to about 35% or so. This is entirely up to you, but I've grown comfortable with 35%, leaving me ample time to deposit my kindling and then re-gear. Now, as far as re-gearing goes, we're going to drop the axe and tinderbox since we don't need those anymore. I did go ahead and move the potions to the bottom of my inventory so it's nice and organized. Here I withdraw everything and then deposit all the special room-specific items. I'm going to keep the burning claws on me though, and then summon my thrall, and so begins the Ice Demon fight. Now these days the Ice Demon room should end pretty quickly with the likes of the burning claws or emberlight or arc light. But in the event that Ice Demon is still alive after the burning claws and you didn't bring in an arc light or emberlight, go ahead and use your fang. Through this method here, walking, you're going to use minimal run energy, and you're going to dodge the snowballs, and you're going to finish Ice Demon. Now if you want to take this into account, Ice Demon does drop some supplies. So that way when you're scavenging, you don't actually need to get all 13 juice and all 8 mushrooms, as Ice Demon does drop some. But for me personally, oftentimes I forget to pick up supplies from here, so I elect to ignore that. Once Ice Demon is done with, next up is the Shaman room, so go ahead and switch into your range gear. And especially if this is your first run, take note of your anti-poison situation, particularly if you pre-potted it. Will this last you through the room? Obviously there is some variation as to how fast you're going to get here, but it should be very similar from raid to raid, so take note of that situation. Now in this specific example right here, we're not safe spotting the Shamans, we're simply utilizing the method of hugging the walls so that the Shamans won't be able to jump. And a nice little trick to save run energy is to simply walk a tile, then run. So you shoot, walk a tile, then run to skip a tile. And this method is very repeatable, and you should be able to dodge the poison bombs nice and easily. Again, going back on whether or not you want to bring any food, it's just a matter of comfort and maybe accounting for some potential mistakes. Here I am sitting at 12 health, but I felt pretty safe the entire time. After Shamans is completed, make sure you pick up Buchu seeds. You won't need the other 2 seeds, just the Buchus. We are now done with all the rooms on the first floor, but before we talk about prep, let's go back to the Shaman room and showcase another method in which you can do the Shaman room. Now you can only do this safe spot method if you are using a 10 tile range weapon, be it a Bofa, a Twisted Bow, a Tumulcan Shadow, or a crossbow put on long range, although I do not recommend that. The concept here is to make the Shamans jump into one of these corners here, and once they're successfully lured into the corner, you can go ahead and run over to the other side, and as long as you keep a 10 tile range, they'll try to track towards you, but get stuck and safe spotted behind this little crevice right here, I guess is what you would call it. The Shaman's done. Make sure to pick up the Butchers once again. Heading into the resource room, take a spade and a seed dibbler if you haven't done the barbarian training yet. Plant in both patches with your Buchu seeds. Really, you just need the one, but sometimes it breaks and it will just save you the headache for later. Restore your run energy, access the shared storage, deposit your potions and the spade, and in private, deposit all to clear your inventory. Take the spade, 13 juice, and 8 mushrooms back out, and pick all from the gourd tree. You're going to have 25 at this point, so go ahead and drop 4 out of your inventory and begin filling the vials up with water. You should have exactly 21 vials. Once the vials are filled, go to the shared storage once again and deposit 10. I have everything set up to left click here so I can do this nice, quickly, and cleanly. We're going to begin picking up the Butchers. This first go around, we're picking up just 8, which is for the 8 mushrooms, meaning 8 restores. We're going to begin making the restores now, and I just want to stress that this 13 to 8 ratio is just something I'm very comfortable with, and you'll see that in this prep. I can do this quickly and cleanly, and this is kind of important because more times than not, people will end up wasting more time than you would think trying to prep. And of course, the prep numbers are adjustable based on how your runs are, based on your gear, and how proficient you are at the raid. So adjust this accordingly. Maybe you need less, maybe you need more. So we made the 8 restores, and then we're going to clear our inventory, withdraw the 10 previously deposited vials. So now we have exactly 13 vials, and then space for 13 Butchers. And we're going to begin making the brews as we make our way over to the next room, which is actually just the transition room. There's a rope there to the next floor. We're going to go ahead and finish up our brews here, and then we're going to dump the spade and the brews in the shared. After that, we're going to withdraw all from private and then deposit these specialty items. So that's the stamina pot, the salve, the elder maw, the pickaxe, things we won't need until later. Because up next is the Vanguards room, so we withdraw the Burning Claws for DPS spec, we have an Overload, the Prayer Enhance, and then this is adjustable as well depending on how well your Vanguards are, but I brought 3 brews and 1 restore for this particular setup. The Vanguards room isn't as difficult as it might seem. You probably avoided this in regular chambers, but with the power of these plugins, in which I will either show on the screen or put in the description, this room is very simple, especially if you just remain patient. The numbers above the Vanguard simply just mean how much damage I can do to them without resetting. So right here with this green Vanguard, we can do over 100 damage easily without worry of resetting it. Also, the green Vanguard is unique in the sense that this is the only Vanguard in which you can step under it to safe spot. It's great for a situation like this where we did a lot of damage to it already and we don't want to hit anymore and we can focus down the other ones. Another thing that is very, very important is to not move around the room until the Vanguards are also in rotation. This is to prevent multiple Vanguards potentially attacking you at the same time, and being it that they attack in different attack styles, yeah, that is a recipe for disaster. It's also great to understand safe spots in this room. As you can see right here, I safe spotted the melee Vanguard. I do have a couple of tiles marked around the room for that reason, but other than that, just make sure you stay as far away as the other Vanguards as possible. keep track of health and understand your own max hits, and then this room should be easily done. Now keep in mind, I have extra inventory space in my inventory because these Vanguards will drop a ton of supplies. We're going to be dropping the Overload and Enhance in our inventory because Vanguards are going to offer up brand new ones. And then there's also going to be a ton of brews and restores. If you find yourself in this situation where all the numbers disappear, it just means all of them are low enough to where you can safely finish all of them off. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, you have to keep their HP thresholds within 30% of each other or so, maybe 33%. But again, with the power of the plugins, just make sure you keep track of that and you'll be okay. Because of all the supplies dropped by Vanguards and then all the supplies we prepped, we're definitely going to have more than enough to get through the raid. In fact, in a couple of rooms later, we're going to continue to get more supplies. And if it wasn't apparent already, Vanguards is the combat triangle. So the Ranger is weak to melee, the meleer is weak to Mage, and the Mager is weak to range. So as I mentioned earlier, Vanguards drops a ton of supplies in which we're picking up right now. And then we're actually going to sip one of these brews because our inventory is completely full. This is to just open up an inventory space so we can begin picking up grubs from these chests right away. Now, if you're really adamant about keeping all of your supplies, you can go ahead and run over to the shared storage that's deeper into the room, and then after you deposit those, begin picking up grubs. Now, the sweet spot, in my opinion, is you want to get about 11 to 13 grubs and then deposit into the trough, and then pick up another 11 to 13, rinse and repeat. In the meanwhile, you do want to deposit all your potions in the shared just to organize your inventory a little bit there. You're going to need 30 grubs just like in regular chambers, so there's not much to this thieving room, not exactly the most exciting room, but you do want to be prepared for what's ahead. So you want to keep all your range gear on you, you want to have your melee gear on you, and you're going to want ample inventory space for potions, particularly restores, because up next is the Vespula room. On top of that, you also want to take out all these specialty items, being your pickaxe, your salve amulet, and things of that nature here. You can see right here, I actually put all my mage gear outside of the Sanguinesti staff into private because we won't be needing that anymore for the rest of this raid up until Ohm. Now, even the Sanguinesti staff being kept in my inventory is questionable, but I'll get into that later. So we sip our stamina potion for the first time here. Alternatively, you can also just touch that energy well we run by right there, and make sure you have your quick prayers set to redemption and rigor here. Run to the mark tile I have labeled here, and then shoot the portal, run to the second mark tile, and rinse and repeat. As long as you do this method, Vespula isn't going to do more than 8 damage, so you'll know your redemption is going to proc as long as you're above 8 health. However, if you are 8 health or below, go ahead and just sip a brew. Take your time on the blue tile on the outer side of that grub looking thing there, and you should have ample time to recover. If you are very comfortable with this, you should be able to do this off of weapon cooldown with a 4-tick weapon anyways. However, if you have a 5-tick weapon, you are going to have to intentionally wait 1 tick on the blue mark tile there. The trick with Vespula and this redemption proccing is that sometimes the game won't turn off your quick prayers. So understanding sound cues is very important and very helpful for this room. So Vespula dropped some supplies there, some brews, restores, and another set of overload and enhance. We're going to heal all the way up, make our way over to the next room, and just before Tightrope room, we actually withdraw a ton more brews. We're going to keep 2 to 3 restores in our inventory, and we're going to be doing the Tightrope room regularly. What that means is just finishing everything off and grabbing the key, I believe is what it's called, the crystal key. With a 4-tick weapon like the Bofa, you're just going to want to stand there and trade hits. There's not much to it. Just keep your health high. And the Magers shouldn't do too much damage, especially in comparison to the Rangers, in which we'll get to in just a second here as we finish off the Magers. However, if you use a 5-tick weapon, you're going to want to understand their attack range and trade hits 1-to-1. because if you use a Twisted Bow or a Tumulcan Shadow, you're going to end up losing out hits, because I'm not entirely sure how fast these NPCs attack, but you can see they're actually pretty quick, and if you use a 5-tick weapon, you're going to lose out on the trades. With a 4-tick weapon, not so much. Okay, moving on to the Rangers. Now, these Rangers hit like an absolute truck. If your health is around 43 or lower, make sure to brew up. Do not risk it, because they are most definitely going to kill you. You can see in this example, though, a few times I do drop below 43 health, and I'm still very confident that I'm going to be alive. This is because the damage is calculated as they shoot their arrow. So let's say I was 5 HP and they shoot their arrow. It's not going to do more than 5 damage. So as long as the arrow is being shot and then I brew, I'm going to brew up to 24 HP. Or actually, I think they heal for 16, right? But the point is, it's not going to do any more damage than what you have. So you can keep yourself alive through that. Also, you saw right there, I was utilizing a method in which I was switching to my Bando's chestplate. Same concept as the brew. The damage is calculated when they shoot the arrow. So in between your own Bofa hits, you can switch into some tankier range armor, just to help yourself conserve those brews. But again, we have a ton of brews. We're taking out more brews right now. We've swapped to the pickaxe and the defender so that we have even extra space. And we have about 2 restores and what is that? I don't know, like 10 brews in our inventory. And we're moving on to floor 3, which is the Guardian's room. There's honestly not too much to this room. There is a method that you can employ that saves you a little bit of run energy, and that is it right here. What you want to do is stand 1 tile away from the Guardian, attack it, run back a tile, and then step back in 1 tile. And as soon as your character stops moving, you click on the Guardian again to attack, rinse and repeat. I will say though, you do want to make sure your pickaxe is on smash, but I'm kind of getting into basic chambers tech, in which I hope someone watching a solo CM video would already have some basic understanding of regular chambers. After Guardians is Vasa, in which you want to run into the room right away as you switch into your range gear. I've swapped the POV over to a max setup here, but this is just because this is a clip where I properly executed the Vasa teleport skip. All it is right there is I run over to the marked tile Vasa teleport skip. It's labeled, wait there for a tick, and then run back out. This is going to trigger the start of the room and skips the teleport damage that you're going to get. Whenever you get teleported, you're going to want to eat up, so skipping the first teleport is very nice. Now let's switch the POV back over to our original run here, where, as I implied, I messed up on the Vasa teleport here. But not to worry, if you do end up getting teleported, you want to wait until after the teleport and then brew. It is a very important sequence of events, as the damage is calculated based on your health before the teleport. Anyways, for Vasa, you want to be ranging Vasa, praying range, and then once it reaches one of these crystals, you want to swap into your melee gear with your DPS spec weapons if available, and DPS the crystals down, and then back into the range gear onto Vasa. With a 4-tick weapon, you can dodge the boulders that are coming at you while attacking Vasa very easily by simply clicking Vasa, clicking to move, clicking Vasa, clicking to move, rinse and repeat. Now with a 5-tick weapon, it is a little bit more complicated than that. You're going to have to manually path in order to not miss hits, but also dodge the boulders. Vasa's going to reach 3 crystals, and after the 3 crystals, if you've not finished Vasa in that time, you're going to get teleported once again, so be mindful of that. But these days with a Bofa or better, more times than not, you're going to get the job done before that becomes the case. Once you're done with Vasa, Vasa's going to offer up an Overload, 2 brews, and a Twisted Plus, which is actually a range potion. The range potion, you can choose to bring it if you have the inventory space. If not, it's no big deal if you leave it behind. More importantly is the 2 brews and the Overload. Now, I choose to take this new Overload and drop the old one, but to be honest, that's kind of like a whatever thing, because in a solo CM, you have every opportunity to get an Overload pretty much. So Muttadile is going to drop 2 overloads, both from the Babydile and the Mamadile. So yeah, like just make sure you're overloaded at all times and you have a 4-dose one going into Ulm, and you should be set. Making our way to the Mystics room, we're once again in our range gear, but we are equipping our Salve Amulet. If you have a Max Mage setup, specifically with the Tunic and Shadow, this is the part where you wouldn't bring the Salve at all into your raid, and you'd be maging these. The Mystic room isn't too complicated either, as you just utilize corner safe spots to trick the Skeletal Mystics. Now let me elaborate on that. The Mystics will try to path towards you, to punch you, to melee you, if they can find the pathing. However, in using the corner safe spot, they won't actually be able to reach you, and they're going to occasionally mage you. Now you want to set up these corner safe spots, because if you don't, the mage hits are really going to stack up and do a number on you. And if you don't safe spot them at all and they're in melee range, well, these things are like Mike Tyson. As we have this Mystic safe spotted here, let me take the opportunity to say, yeah, I did drop my Prayer Enhance back at Vasa, if you've noticed that. And that's simply because I sipped it, dropped it to make room for more brews in my inventory for the infamous room that follows Mystics, and that is the Muttadile room. It's kind of a joke that Muttadile is sometimes referred to as the actual hardest part of challenge mode chambers, and that's simply because of how ridiculously hard the Mamadile and the Babydile hit. And that is the reason why we have packed our inventory up with brews as much as possible. Not to worry about the Prayer Enhance though, as we'll be getting one from the Mamadile. As we finish the Mystic, let's showcase the Tendril Skip. Run over to this tile right here and spam Control Click or Walk to get through the door. And then as you run past, you'll skip the tendrils that spawn there. This is not a big deal by any stretch of the imagination, but it does save you a tick or something. Alright, let's go into how to actually do the Muttadile room here. So there's a bronze axe available in the room. You want to pick up that axe and begin chopping this tree. Protecting range or melee depending on where the Babydile is. Obviously, if it's next to you, protect melee. Now upon each woodcutting EXP drop, you can actually attack the Babydile as well as brew at the same time, or restore whatever you need to do, and then click back onto the tree. Similar concept as Ice Demon earlier. Now I touched on bringing the Sanguinesti staff earlier. If you have it, I suppose it's a nice quality of life thing to use, as it still does decent damage and can potentially heal you. If you choose to bank it instead though, no big deal. The key thing here while you're chopping the tree is to not drop the Muttadile below 50% health. Otherwise, it's going to eat from the tree and regenerate health. But once you get rid of the tree, you are safe to just fight the Babydile as I am now. And I did swap into my melee gear as it is slightly tankier, and I do have Burning Claws to burn as well. However, I will say though, when you have a Fang setup and the Bofa setup, I believe the Bofa setup is actually slightly better DPS, but it's a trade-off in defenses versus offenses, so make of it what you will, make your decision there. But once we're done with that, we run over to this safe spot over here, although it's not a foolproof safe spot. We're going to protect range and begin ranging the Muttadile. Do not greed on your brews here. There's a reason why we have an inventory full of them. You can see here we're taking a whole bunch of damage. Now let's see if we can get an example here in this fight. But occasionally Muttadile will mage you, and it is random when it will do that. However, what isn't random is that once it does mage you right there, the next 2 attacks that follow are guaranteed to be mage hits. So I swap over to Prey Mage, and it's attacked me twice there. I'm going to do it for 1 more hit, and then I swap back to range. It's not necessarily going to swap back to range. Sometimes it might continue to mage you, but the range hits do a whole lot more damage than the mage, so you definitely want to prioritize praying range. With the Muttadile down, we pick up the Overload and the Enhance that we were missing. We dropped it back at Vasa, take the brew and restore, and now we're making our way to Ulm. I will say there are varying other methods to do the Muttadile room, but chopping the tree is the most consistent method. Because we prepped so many supplies and we got so many supplies along the way, heading into Ulm, we're just going to brew up and restore all the way because we have all the extra supplies in the world. For me, I can very comfortably do Ulm with about 5 brews and 2 restores. And evidently in this setup, I can actually afford more because I have the inventory space. Throughout this gearing process, I highly encourage you to take your time, because the worst thing that can happen is you are 30 minutes into the raid, you made it to Ulm, and you forget a crucial item. The first thing I want to do is deposit the weapons and gear that I don't need anymore. So that's going to be the Fang, and it's going to be the Pickaxe, the Burning Claws, as well as the Salve. And then I immediately take the things that I do need, like the Dragon Hunter Lance and the Elder Maw out. And then I sort out my potion situation, and that way I know I'm ready to go. Don't forget, you're not going to be using your Bofa. Instead, you're going to be taking out the Dragon Hunter crossbow, so make sure you have that as well. And in order to prep for the Olm fight and ensure that it's as comfortable as possible for you, you can consider dropping some of the armor switches. For example, the Ancestral Hat and the Crystal Helm are likely the first things to go. Full Crystal is less important because you're going to be utilizing the Dragon Hunter crossbow now. Sure enough, on this run, this is actually an example of me not listening to my own advice here, and I accidentally brought in the Bofa. Not to worry though, it didn't really play a role, but sometimes that one brew, that one extra inventory space you needed, makes a difference. Another note is that you see I have a brew on the ground right now, and that's because I made it a point to equip my Lance and my Defender on, or my Trident and my Book on, just to have that extra inventory space so that I can drop the brew. I do drop it though because obviously the Elder Maw is two-handed. I suppose if you're using a Dragon Warhammer, this is not something to consider at all. Into Olm. There is a consistent method I employ at the start of all 3 hand phases. On the first phase, I will be taking 1 normal attack, but on P2 and P3, it'll be a damageless start. As you enter Olm, pay attention to which side Olm spawns in. This is completely random. The CoX Additions plugin can help by highlighting which side it'll spawn in just before you can tell visually. Let's take a look at the screenshot and the tiles marked. Disregard the labeled one. All the way on the left is the Mage hand ring finger. Then we have a center tile to force Olm to turn its head away from the melee side. Then we have a tile on the melee hand thumb, and then the melee hand ring. The general idea is that when you're standing on either ring finger side, it'll make the head turn that respective way. And if you're on the tiles anywhere between those 2 tiles, then you're going to force Olm's head to face the center. Now if you attack the Mage hand from the center tile just below Olm, then it's going to turn towards the left. So that's a very basic explanation as to how the head turns. Let's circle back to the start of each phase. Begin each phase by instantly hammer specking on the thumb tile. Then immediately run to the ring finger, change directions and swap into Mage gear. Attack the Mage hand as you run towards the Mage ring finger. This will keep the head turning and you won't take damage outside of the start of P1. This directly puts you into the 3-0 Mage running cycle. As you attack from the thumb tile to force the head middle, run to the ring finger to turn it to the right, and make your way to the center and attack to force it to turn left. 2 things that people get caught out by the most here is that their staff is on long range. It needs to be on accurate, and they don't understand the timing going from ring finger to the middle. Let's break that down. Olm turns its head every 4 ticks. In order to turn the head from right to left in time, you must get from the ring finger to the middle tile in 4 ticks. The melee ring finger tile is 9 tiles away from the Mage hand, and coincidentally, a staff on long range can attack from 9 tiles away, but on accurate, it has a range of 7 tiles. Keep this in mind. The 3-0 Mage running method relies on manipulating the head turning every 4 ticks. Each tile you run or walk is 1 tick. With that in mind, moving from the center to the thumb tile and thumb tile to the ring finger is easy enough. But the distance from the ring finger to the middle is further. As such, you have to run more tiles. Attacking from the ring finger will drag your character closer to the center, and then you have to instantly path your way to the middle in order to get to where you need to be in 4 ticks. The melee hand method requires the same type of understanding, but there's no efficient damageless method. The most efficient method is the 4-to-1, meaning every 4 of your attacks, you'll receive 1 hit. The danger is that this 1 hit, depending on Olm's attack cycle, could be a special attack. Olm has a specific attack cycle, but you don't need to memorize that. You just need to learn how to react to certain special attacks. But before we go into that, let's break down 4-to-1 at the basic level, when you're already in cycle and everything is going smoothly. Again, just like the Mage hand method, the method relies on manipulating Olm's head turns every 4 ticks. A good reference point to start the cycle is to attack from the thumb tile at the exact same tick that Olm is attacking you. This is where the 1 comes into play from the 4-to-1. Olm should already be facing right during this attack. In this case, you would run towards the middle. Upon reaching the middle tile, immediately click back on the hand to once again attack on the thumb tile. However, in the same tick that you are attacking on thumb, you must continue your character's momentum towards ring finger. This is the part that catches people out the most. Your character cannot stop moving at this thumb tile. Your next two attacks will be at the ring finger. Since both attacks are at the ring finger, instead of standing still, I keep my character moving. This is to avoid the potential flame wall, which, by the way, I'm sure you realized we don't have waters. Here's an example of avoiding the flame walls. I want to clarify that this specific 4-to-1 method I'm explaining is a slightly more advanced method, and that is why once you are in cycle, instead of expecting to receive a hit at the thumb tile, it is at the ring finger instead. The most basic 4-to-1 method has you attacking at the thumb tile twice while standing still, and if a flame wall attack occurs, you will be caught in it, which is more or less a death sentence. Alright, with the basic 4-to-1 out the way, how do we fix things when we aren't in cycle? When you get 2 auto attacks in quick succession, you want to 3-to-1, only doing the 1 attack at ring finger. After this, you will be back in cycle. In this specific instance, we also got hit with the acid poison trail. When this comes out, do not panic. Simply keep in cycle and keep moving. You won't take much damage as long as you are on the move, and over time, you can become proficient at maneuvering around to safe tiles while staying in cycle. You will learn there is a lot of leeway. This just comes with practice. When the teleports occur, first and foremost, be sure to step on the portal or be as close as possible. After that, it's pretty much a reset. Use the marked tiles to reset and find where you are in the cycle. The easiest method is to turn the head by running to the ring finger tiles. When lightning occurs, simply 3-to-1 twice, and then you'll be back in cycle. When the ground crystal pops up, 1-to-0 to fix the cycle. This is when you attack the thumb and keep moving towards the ring finger. However, if you notice that you also received 2 auto attacks, then you can 1-to-0, then 3-to-1, and you will be back in cycle. Attacks such as the Acid, Decolored Orb Prayer Drains, Flame Wall, Fallen Crystals, and Crystal Bombs are not considered specials. When these occur, do your best to stay in cycle, and as you gain experience, you'll see opportunities where it is beneficial to stay in cycle at the cost of minimal damage. With both 3-0 Mage and 4-1 Melee out the way now, on P3, make sure to lower the hand's respective healths as low as possible, and then finish the Melee hand, then the Mage hand, to enter the final phase. To start the final phase, Olm's head will already be turning left or right. I usually begin by attacking anywhere in the middle to turn its head middle. Then I make my way to the ring tile. As Olm turns his head towards me, I begin running to the other side. As soon as I cross the middle threshold, I attack again. I then run towards the other ring tile and immediately click back towards the center as well as attack Olm. This is a similar idea as the mage attack we discussed for the mage hand, except you'll have to manually path towards the center first, before clicking to attack. Attack once you cross the middle threshold, so Olm faces middle, and then repeat the process. You'll be able to hit on the ring finger this time. So keep in mind, on one side you can stand on ring finger to attack, and on the other side you have to immediately click back and then attack. It doesn't matter which side is which, it just depends on how you started. Obviously during this phase, there is a lot of potential damage coming in, with the constant falling crystals and various attacks. Dodging attacks just comes with practice, and in some pretty unlucky situations, you'll be forced to either miss hits or tank damage to stay in cycle. These are things you'll learn to read on the fly as you get more reps in. Alright, that was a lot of information to take in. I'll try to timestamp everything in the description. But that more or less concludes the solo CM guide. I'll be going over the Scythe and Shadow methods after this, but everything that's already been discussed and showcased is more than enough to get started on getting your first solo CM completion. Good luck, and do ask questions if there are any. Hopefully myself or some part of the community can help. Before I get into the Shadow and Scythe methods, I highly recommend you at least have the understanding of the 3-0 and 4-1 methods. Those same principles carry over to the 12-0 and 8-1 Shadow methods, as well as the 3-1 Scythe method. And when it comes to the Scythe, I'm going to be honest, you can get away with not learning anything and just face tanking the melee hand in max gear. It's not ideal, but it is doable. Let's begin with the Shadow method. Begin each phase just as we discussed earlier with the hammer spec and at the thumb tile, and then transitioning into your mage gear. The Shadow method is a bit more complicated than the 3-0 method, to say the least. For one thing, I'm sure you noticed that it's a 12-0 and 8-1 method. This is because the method differs based on which side Ohm is on. If Ohm is on the east side, then it'll be the 8-1 method. And if it's on the west side, it'll be 12-0. That's right, one side will allow you to take absolutely no damage, while the other forces you to tank one hit. It's RNG in that regard. For both sides, you will have to be ready to switch between long range and accurate on your Shadow. As Ohm turns towards the right, you'll step on tile 1, and then accurate attack to drag yourself towards the middle. As you cross the middle threshold, you have to immediately cross back over. That way Ohm faces left and you'll be out of attack vision. You'll attack here and then make your way to the LR tile. This is where you switch to long range to attack. After that attack, begin running to the left to cross the threshold, and make sure you've swapped back to accurate attack style. This time, you'll attack while staying on the left side, and then as you run right, you'll attack somewhere in the middle again. Make your way back to the ring finger, and as Ohm turns towards the right again, step on tile 1 and attack just as we did before. But you'll receive an attack as you move to the left this time. The 12-0 method. The start of this is exactly the same as 8-1. Make your way to ring finger, and as Ohm turns, step on tile 1 and attack. Immediately click to cross the threshold. Cross back over and attack. Make your way to the ring finger tile, long range attack, cross the threshold and attack. As you cross back over, attack off of weapon cooldown. Somewhere in the middle, return back to ring finger. Then path towards tile 2 and attack. I highly recommend manually pathing the tile 1 and then 2 and carry on this principle to tile 3 later in the rotation as well. Cross the threshold and back and attack somewhere in the middle. Then path to ring finger and this time attack from there. This is the same concept as the 3-0 method. Cross the threshold and back and attack somewhere in the middle. You can get 2 attacks in for this part. I'm sure you see the pattern now. Go to ring finger and now manually path 1, 2, and on 3 attack and cross the threshold. The key is to always attack off of weapon cooldown and utilize movement to help count. This way you can also be sure that you will properly make it to the tiles in time as Ohm turns his head. I understand I didn't go too specific here, but that's on purpose. There's a lot of leeway. People can run and walk various amounts of tiles in order to save run energy. This is why it's important to understand the timing to Ohm's head turning. 3-1 melee Scythe. I don't recommend using the Fang because this method is already using the Scythe in a slightly inefficient manner. The Dragon Hunter Lance will definitely be a better option. For every 3 attacks with the Scythe, one of the attacks is actually 6 ticked. So this is a 5.33 tick method. A similar situation you may find yourself in at the Theater of Blood. Anyways, I won't go into too much detail here because the principles are the same as 4-1. For this method, you'll want to attack on the move on thumb, the same as before. You'll attack on ring finger, but because your weapon is 5 tick, you'll stand on ring finger for a extra tick before the swing. You then step towards the right to burn a tick for the flame wall dodge. The difference here is you'll path towards thumb instead of going for a second ring finger attack. As you path towards the thumb, this is where you 6-tick your Scythe. As you swing on thumb, run towards the middle tile, and wait 1 tick there. Then cross back over and repeat the cycle. Alternatively, you can walk from thumb to middle, and instantly run back towards thumb. To handle specials and get back in cycle, everything that we had to 3-1 in the lance setup before will now be a 1-1. So with lightning, we 3-1 twice with a lance, but we 1-1 twice with a Scythe. Since I showcased a mid-tier setup in the beginning of this video, let me very quickly showcase an example max gear setup. These are just gear upgrades, but the raid would be ran the exact same way. As for speedrunning, that is a whole different ballgame. Well, I think that concludes the video. Hopefully I covered most things. I'm sure I missed one or two things here, and once again, feel free to ask questions in the comments, and hopefully myself or someone else can fill in the gaps in knowledge or things that weren't mentioned in this video.